Section 6 of a traveller's narrative written to illustrate the episode of the Bab. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Nicholas James Bridgewater. A traveller's narrative written to illustrate the episode of the Bab by Abdul-L-Baha Abbas. Translated by Edward Granville Browne. Section 6. Now the Siyyid Bab had disposed all his affairs before setting out from Chehriq towards Tabriz, had placed his writings and even his ring and pencase in a specially prepared box, put the key of the box in an envelope, and sent it by means of Mullah Baqir, who was one of his first associates, to Mullah Abdul Karim of Qazvin. This trust Mullah Baqir delivered over to Mullah Abdul Karim at Qom, in presence of a numerous company. At the solicitations of those present, he opened the lid of the box and said, quote, I am commanded to convey this trust to Bahá'u'lláh. More than this, ask not of me, for I cannot tell you. End quote. Importuned by the company, he produced a long epistle in blue, penned in the most graceful manner, with the utmost delicacy and firmness, in a beautiful minute shikaste hand, written in the shape of a man so closely that it would have been imagined that it was a single wash of ink on the paper. When they had read this epistle, they perceived that he had produced 360 derivatives from the word Baha. Then Mullah Abdul Karim conveyed the trust to its destination. Well, we must return to our original narrative. The Prime Minister issued a second order to his brother Mirza Hasan Khan, the gist of which order was this, quote, obtain a formal and explicit sentence from the learned doctors of Tabriz, who are the firm support of the Church of Ja'far, upon whom be peace, and the impregnable stronghold of the Shiite faith. Summon the Christian regiment of Urumiyyah, suspend the Bab before all the people, and give orders for the regiment to fire a volley. End quote. Mirza Hasan Khan summoned his chief of the Farrashes and gave him his instructions. They removed the Bab's turban and sash, which were the signs of his Sayyidhood, brought him with 4 of his followers to the barrack square of Tabriz, confined him in a cell, and appointed 40 of the Christian soldiers of Tabriz to guard him. Next day, the chief of the Farrashes delivered over the Bab and a young man named Agha Muhammad Ali, who was of a noble family of Tabriz, to Sam Khan, colonel of the Christian regiment of Urumiyyah, at the sentences of the learned divine Mullah Muhammad of Mamaghan, of the second ecclesiastical authority Mullah Mirza Baqir, and of the third ecclesiastical authority Mullah Murtaza Qoli, and others. An iron nail was hammered into the middle of the staircase of the very cell wherein they were imprisoned, and 2 ropes were hung down. By one rope the Bab was suspended, and by the other rope Agha Muhammad Ali, both being firmly bound in such wise that the head of the young man was on the Bab's breast. The surrounding housetops billowed with teeming crowds. A regiment of soldiers ranged itself in 3 files. The first file fired, then the second file, and then the third file discharged volleys. From the first of these volleys a mighty smoke was produced. When the smoke cleared away, they saw that young man standing, and the Bab seated by the side of his amanuensis, Agha Siyyid Hussein, in the very cell from the staircase of which they had suspended him. To neither one of them had the slightest injury resulted. Sam Khan the Christian asked to be excused. The turn of service came to another regiment, and the chief of the Farrashes withheld his hand. Agha Jan Beg of Khamse, colonel of the bodyguard, advanced, and they again bound the Bab together with that young man to the same nail. The Bab uttered certain words which those few who knew Persian understood, while the rest heard but the sound of his voice. The colonel of the regiment appeared in person, and it was before noon on the 28th day of Sha'ban in the year A.H. 1266. Note July 9th, 1850. End note. Suddenly he gave orders to fire. At this volley the bullets produced such an effect that the breasts of the victims were riddled, and their limbs were completely dissected except their faces, which were but little marred. Then they removed those two bodies from the square to the edge of the moat outside the city, and that night they remained by the edge of the moat. Next day the Russian consul came with an artist and took a picture of those two bodies in the posture wherein they had fallen at the edge of the moat. On the second night, at midnight, the Babis carried away the two bodies. On the third day the people did not find the bodies, and some supposed that the wild beasts had devoured them, so that the doctors proclaimed from the summits of their pulpits, saying, "The holy body of the Immaculate Imam and that of the true Shiite are preserved from the encroachments of beasts of prey and creeping things and wounds. But the body of this person have the wild beasts torn in pieces." But after the fullest investigation and inquiry it hath been proved that when the Bab had dispersed all his writings and personal properties, it had become clear and evident from various signs that these events would shortly take place. Therefore, on the second day of the events, Suleiman Khan, the son of Yahya Khan, one of the notables of Azerbaijan, devoted to the Bab, arrived, and proceeded straightway to the house of the mayor of Tabriz. And since the mayor was an old friend, associate, and confidant of his, since, moreover, he was of the mystic temperament, and did not entertain aversion or dislike for any sect, Suleiman Khan divulged this secret to him, saying, "Tonight I, with several others, will endeavour by every means and artifice to rescue the body. Even though it be not possible, come what may, we will make an attack, and either obtain our object or pour out our lives freely in this way." "Such troubles," answered the mayor, "are in no wise necessary." He then sent one of his private servants, named Haji Allah Yar, who, by whatever means and proceedings it was, obtained the body without trouble or difficulty, and handed it over to Haji Suleiman Khan. And when it was morning, the sentinels, to excuse themselves, said that the wild beasts had devoured it. That night they sheltered the body in the workshop of a Babi of Milan. Next day they manufactured a box, placed it in the box, and left it as a trust. Afterwards, in accordance with instructions which arrived from Tehran, they sent it away from Azerbaijan, and this transaction remained absolutely secret. Section 7